Hello children, how are you all? I hope you are fine and good. I am the Axon from Bharathidhasanar Matric Higher Secondary School, Arakkonam. Children, today we are going to see 10th standard biology chapter 15. What is the name of the chapter, children? Nervous system. So, what is the use of the nervous system, right? For example, we all organisms response. What is a we respond according to the stimuli. I will say one simple example. When you feel shivering, automatically what you will do at home? You will switch off the fan or you will wear a sweater, right? And when you feel more sweating, you switch on the fan, right? So, what is the stimulus and what is the response here? So, the change that takes place in the environment, it may be a heat or a cold or a temperature, that it is received by our receptors. So, that we call it as a stimulus. Stimulus means thundudal, we say in Tamil, which we receive from the environment. And the response is that how we react to it, right, according to the situation. I told you just if you feeling shivering is your stimulus, right, and wearing a sweater is your response towards that stimuli. So, we all human beings, plants, animals, everyone responds to the stimulus. So, what is the stimulus, children? Now, let us write the definition. Changes in the environment that are detected by our sensory receptors. Detected by our sensory receptors or sensory nerves present in our skin. So, that is a stimulus. And now we are going to see what is a response. The response is that how we react. The response is that how we react to the stimulus. So, now you understood what is a stimulus and what is a response. So, now let us see some of the examples for response to stimuli. Just look into this picture, children. A person touches a hot pan. Immediately what he do? Touching a hot pan, feeling the heat is a stimulus. So, what he did? Automatically he withdraws his hand from the pan. So, this is a response. So, touching a hot pan, feeling the heat is a stimulus. Removing the hand from the pan is a response. The well known example for this is a touch me not plant. In Tamil we say it as Tottal Siningi. You just imagine, children, when a person or when we touch this leaf with the help of a stick, automatically the leaf closes. So, touching is a stimulus and the closure of the leaves is a response. The very good example for response to stimuli is a touch me not plant. And let us see one more example. Sunflower, right? Have you all seen a sunflower, children? The direction of the sunflower will be towards the direction of the sunlight. Hence, it is named as a sunflower. See, morning you can see the sunflowers facing the east direction because sun rises in the east, and automatically during the midday it comes up, and automatically during the evening it turns to the west side. So, sunflower is a very good example for response to stimuli. It responds towards the light produced by the sun. So, what are all the three examples we studied, children? One, we studied a man touching a hot pan, and next touch me not plant, and another one example is a sunflower. Likewise, we can say many examples for the response to stimuli. Next, we are going to see what is the coordination and what is homeostasis. What is coordination, children? You just imagine you are walking, right? What are all the things you need? Can you walk only with the help of the legs? No. We need many systems working together in it. For example, if you want to walk, you need a main support of our nervous system. And what happens? Then our muscular system, skeletal system. So, many systems work together to perform a certain function. So that is a coordination. For example, if I want to write in the board, what I have to do? I have to think. First my brain will decide to which direction I should turn and which angle I should raise my hand. Next, my muscular system as well as the nervous system, sensory receptors present in the skin as well as the bones should coordinate to help me to do a single work. So what is coordination, children? Coordination in simple meaning we can say as working together. Working together. That is, all systems of our body functions together to accomplish or to complete a work or any function. So we say this as a coordination. And what is homeostasis? All the systems of our body work in a coordinating fashion to maintain the homeostasis. Homeostasis is nothing but the internal balance. Internal balance of our body, right? We are best examples for maintaining the homeostasis equilibrium. For example, children, automatically you see during the winter, you do not sweat, right? But how the water loss takes place? We urinate more, right? So this is a process of our body to maintain the homeostasis mechanism. But in the summer season, you drink more water and the excess amount of water is lost through the sweat. So our body will maintain the homeostasis equilibrium with the coordinating function of all the system. So next we are going to study about the nervous system. Our nervous system consists of three parts. First part is a neuron or a nerve cell. Second one is a neuroglia. Third one is a nerve fibers. So first one we are going to see about the structure of the nerve. What is this, children? It is a nerve cell. It is a nerve cell, or we can, in short, we can call it as a neuron. So this is a structural and functional basis of our nervous system. So what do these neurons do? The neurons transmit the impulses from one to the another part. For example, the neurons are interconnected to each other. They receive the signals from the brain and transmit to various parts of the body. And here one more question is asked, children. Which is the longest human cell? The longest human cell is a neuron, and the size of the neuron is 100 micrometers. Just underline in your book, what is the size? 100 micrometer. So this is the neuron, and we can study the structure of the neuron later. The next part of our nervous system is the neuroglia. Neuroglia is just a supporting tissue. Neuroglia, we can also call it as a glial cells. We can also call it as a glial cells. Their main purpose is to connect the neurons. For example, one neuron is like this, right? And the another neuron will be connected like this, and there will be many neurons connecting like this, and in between the neurons, what is present as a connective tissue is that neuroglia. So the neuroglia are the tissues which is present in between the neurons. They do not conduct any impulse. The main function is supporting or to provide nutrition to the nerve cells. To provide nutrition to the nerve cells. So this is a neuroglia, or we call it as a glial cells. Glial cells. And one important thing is that, children, neurons do not have the capacity to divide. From this important one more question is asked, which cell in our body we do not have the capacity to divide? That is a nerve cell. The nerve cells do not undergo cell division. The third important part of the nervous system is a nerve fibers. Okay, so the nerve fibers are bundled together. There are many minute fibers. There are many minute nerve fibers and they are bundled together to form a nerve. So, each nerve consists of bundles of nerve fibers. Just look into this picture, children. It is a nerve and inside that we can see many bundles of nerve fibers. They help in transmitting the impulses. So, what are the three parts we discussed, children? We discussed about the neurons, next about the neuroglia, and third one is about the nerve fibers. And now we are going to study the structure of neuron. The neuron, it is the structural and functional unit of our nervous system. One more question, which is the structural unit and functional unit of our nervous system? The answer is neuron or a nerve cell. How can we call this? We can call neuron also as a nerve cell. Now let us mark the parts of the neuron, right? So this is a Cyton or cell body, head, right? Cyton or cell body, and it consists of a nucleus. It consists of nucleus and many branches that arise from the Cyton, we call it as a dendrites. We call it as a dendrites, and the long tube that arises from the Cyton, we call it as a axon. What we say? Axon. This fully it is a axon, and axon is covered by a sheet called as myelin sheath. What we call this, children? Myelin sheath. And the axon ends in the nerve endings. This is a terminal branches. This is a terminal branches. And it ends in a, for example, if this is a terminal branches, it ends in a bulb-like structure. This bulb-like structure we call it as a synaptic knob. How do we call, children? Synaptic knob. So these are all the main parts of the axon. They will ask in a 5-mark question or a 4-mark question. They will ask you to draw the structure of the neuron and label the parts. So these are all the main parts of the axon. Now let us discuss one by one. So first we are going to study about the Cyton. Which is the Cyton, children? This is a Cyton. This is a Cyton. What is the other name of Cyton? Cyton is otherwise called as a cell body. Till this we call the portion as a Cyton. What is the other name of Cyton? Cyton is otherwise called as cell body. Cell body. And the cytoplasm, just imagine this is a Cyton and it is filled with the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm we call it as a neuroplasm. What we call? Neuroplasm. Neuroplasm, and it consists of the nucleus. It contains a nucleus. It consists of the nucleus, and here in the neuroplasm there are many minute particles. There are many minute particles like this. These particles we call it as a Nissls granules. What we call? Nissls granules. Nissls granules. And apart from the Nissl granules, many ribosomes, mitochondria and all the cell organelles are present in the nerve cell also. So this is about the what? The structure of the Cyton. And next we are going to discuss about the dendrites. So what is the dendrites? The many branched structures that arise from the Cyton. Many branched structures that arise from the Cyton, we call it as a dendrites. We call it as a dendrites. What is the use of dendrites? dendrites is helpful in transmitting the impulses. For example, these dendrites receive the impulse from the another neuron. For example, the nerves are connected like this, children. For example, this is a cyton, axon, next is synaptic knob, and again another dendrite will be present here. Dendrites, right, like this, again the another neuron will be there. So the dendrites are helpful in transmitting the impulse from one neuron to the another neuron. So what is the function of the dendrites? Helps in transmitting the impulses from one neuron to the another neuron. So far we discussed about the structure of the neuron. In that we discussed what is a cyton and what is the function of the dendrites. Next we are going to discuss about the another part, that is the axon. From the cyton you can see one long tube arises, right children? So this long tube we call it as a what? Axon. This we call it as a axon. Okay, it is a long tube like structure that arises from the cyton. And here this axon, in some, imagine this is the axon, in some neurons the axon are covered by a structure called myelin sheath. Before that we should know, I told you the fluid present here we call it as a neuroplasm. Likewise, this axon also possesses some fluid, that fluid we call it as a axoplasm. What we say? Axoplasm. And the outer, this covering we say it as axolemma. Axolemma. And in some neurons the axons are covered by the myelin sheath. Myelin sheath. So what is this? Myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath encloses a special type of structures called as a Schwann cells. What is this? Schwann cells. And the gap between the two myelin sheath we call it as a internodes. We call it as internodes. And there are some neurons without the myelin sheath also. So with myelin sheath we call them as what we call? Myelinated neuron. Without myelin sheath we call them as a non-myelinated neuron. So, and this axons at the end, it divided into many branches called as a terminal branches and end in the bulb-like structures. All the terminal branches ends in the bulb-like structures like this. Bulb-like structure, that we call it as a synaptic knob. What we call? Synaptic knob. So this is a structure of the neuron. They will ask you to explain also, children, in a 7-mark question. So just I will recall, neuron consists of a cell body or a cyton. It consists of nucleus and the fluid present here we call it as a neuroplasm, and Nissel's granules are present in the neuroplasm, and many branched processes that arise from the cyton we say it as a dendrites, and the long filament that arises from the cyton we say it as a axon, and the axon is filled with the fluid axoplasm, and the axon is covered by the membrane axolemma, and in some neurons it is covered by a sheath called myelin sheath. Such neurons we say it as myelinated neuron, but in some neurons the myelin sheath is absent. So the axons ends in the bulb-like structures called as synaptic knob. So children, and now we are going to see what is a synapse. Just imagine this is the presynaptic and this is the postsynaptic. What do you mean by presynaptic? Pre means the first neuron, post means the another neuron. So the junction between, for example, I will draw you the structure. this is a dendrites, right? And here again what happens? The synaptic knob, the terminal branches and the axon, like this. So, the junction between the synaptic knob of the neuron and the dendrites of the another neuron, we say it as a synapse. The synapse is a junction between the synaptic knob and the dendrite. So, here we call this as a presynaptic membrane, and this is a postsynaptic membrane. Pre means the first neuron, post means the next. The junction between the two neurons, we call it as a synapse. The synapse helps in transmitting the impulse from one neuron to the another. And now we are going to see about the types of neurons based on their structure. Just look into this picture, children. Here, this we say it as a unipolar neuron. Why we say it as a unipolar neuron? Because from the Cyton only one process is arised. Only one process arises from the Cyton. So, we call this as a unipolar neurons. Unipolar neurons. And in the do you know box they have given where do these unipolar neurons are found? Unipolar neurons are found only in the embryos. In the embryos. When the embryos develop into adult, the unipolar neuron get disappeared. So, if only one process arises from the Cyton, we say it as a unipolar. And just look into this structure, children. Here what happened? This is a Cyton and the two processes, there are two processes that arise from the Cyton. Such we say it as a bipolar neuron. What we say? Bipolar neuron, and bipolar neuron we can see in our retina of the eye. Here one more question is asked, children. It is found in the retina and it is also found in the olfactory epithelium of our nasal chamber, and it is also found in the olfactory nerves, right? And next, this is a multipolar neuron, that is from the Cyton several processes occurs. So, this we say it as a multipolar neuron. Multipolar neuron is found in our brain, is found in a well developed human brain. So, this is a multipolar neuron. So, from this they may ask a 3 more question, children. What are the 3 types of neurons based on their structure? So, now we are going to see the types of neurons based on their function. There are 3 types of neurons, children. One is a sensory neuron, association neuron and the motor neuron. So, what is a sensory neuron? So, the sensory neuron carry the impulses from the sense organs. So, this is a sensory neuron which carry impulses to the brain. So, sensory, or we can also say this as afferent. And the another neuron which receives the impulses from the sensory neuron and gives it to the muscles, or which controls the voluntary muscles, we say it as a motor neurons. Motor neurons, or otherwise it is called as a efferent neuron. So, this is the efferent neuron. So, afferent is a sensory in function and efferent is motor in function. And there is another type of neuron which is present between the afferent and the efferent. So, this intermediate neuron we call it as a association neuron. So, what are the 3 types of neurons based on their function, children? Afferent or sensory, next association neuron, and then finally the motor or efferent neuron. So, Next we are going to just see this image, children. You can see one neuron without the myelin sheath and another one with the myelin sheath. So, the neurons with the myelin sheath, we say it as a myelinated neuron, and the neurons without the myelin, we say it as unmyelinated neuron. So, now we shall see the structure of the myelinated and the unmyelinated neuron. So, the neurons which possesses the myelin sheath. So, this is a, just imagine children, this is a axon, and the axons are covered by a sheath called as a myelin sheath, and in between the myelin sheath, this structure, the nodes, we call it as a nodes of Ranvier, nodes of Ranvier. So, such neurons, we say it as a myelinated neuron. We say it as myelinated neuron. And some neurons do not possess the myelin sheath. You just look at here, what is present? Only axon is present, no myelin sheath. Such neurons, we say it as unmyelinated or non-myelinated neurons. Non-myelinated neuron. So, we studied about the three types of neurons. One is based on their structure as unipolar, bipolar and multipolar. Next we studied based on their function, sensory, association and motor neurons, and next based on the presence or absence of myelin sheath, myelinated and non-myelinated. So, now let us recap, children, what are all the things we studied? We studied about the response, then stimuli, coordination and homeostasis. Then we studied about the nervous system. Nervous system composed of, what are all the three things we studied? We studied about the neuron. Next we studied about the neuroglia. And third we studied about the nerve fiber. And next we studied about the structure of neuron. We studied about the structure of neuron, and then we studied about the types of neuron. So, this is the assessment given related to this lesson, children. From this I will ask you one more question, important question. Cyton, we know it is also called as a cell body. There is another name for it, that is perikaryon. It is given in your book, just underline it. So, with this session comes to an end, children. In the description we have attached the study material, assessment and question bank for this lesson. Go through it. Thank you, children.